Good evening. It's Wednesday, January 19th, 2022 at 6 p.m. I'm calling the Lakeville Board of Health meeting to order. Is there anyone recording this other than LakeCAM? I hear no one for the record. In accordance with the provisions allowed by Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, the January 19th, 2022 public meeting of the Board of Health will be held remotely. However, to view this meeting in progress, please go to facebook.com/LakeCAM. You do not need a Facebook account to view this meeting. This meeting will be recorded and available to be viewed at a later date at LakeCAM.tv. I'm just going to make sure everybody can hear me. Chris Spratt. You're muted, Chris.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm present.
Okay. Bob Palucci,
Yep, present.
Edward Cullen.
Present.
Okay, we have three things on the agenda, so I'm not sure who's going to be in for each of them, but 57 Long Point Road. Is someone here for that? Okay.
Yes.
Two people, okay. And is you the only two that are going to be here for this meeting?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, we have a third person. Nick Kelly is also with us. So it's myself, Michael Milanowski, John Cotter, and Nicholas Kelly.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mhm.
8 Old Powderhouse Road, is Colin's Engineering with us?
Good evening, this is Peter. I'm with Colin's Engineering for
Okay.
Old House Road.
Okay. And then I believe we have 3 Old Powderhouse Road with Douglas Murphy. I think he's called in already. He's somewhere, I believe, still with us.
Yes, I'm present.
All right. Thank you. I'll start with the meeting then. First on the agenda, 57 Long Point Road. Discuss a recorded notice of decision. I'll
Derek, can
turn-
I just comment? I wasn't involved in this and I didn't vote on it, so I'm not gonna vote on this since I wasn't involved in the original thing, so I'm gonna stay on just so I can be informed, but I'll let you and Chris make the decision on this one.
Okay, thank you for that, Bob. So in this case, like the last decisions on this property, it'll have to be unanimous, seeing there's only 2 board members, just so you're aware. All right, so we'll turn it over to one of you three, John, Nick, or Mike.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to get started here. And first of all, thank you for putting us on the agenda. And Chris, I hope you have a speedy recovery with COVID for you and your family.
Thank you.
You can. So, Mr. Chairman, I believe we're here for 2 items as it relates to the original decision, and I'll outline those in a second. Just as background, when this project was permitted, there was a lot of conceptual items that were built into the project, and as time has progressed and we've moved forward with working with your health agent and with the building commissioner, the fire chief, and DEP, there have been some clarification to what has evolved. So the 2 items that we're here to ask your permission for some modification in the original decision language doesn't necessarily change the outcome. It just clarifies what the needs are in today's design standards. So the first item is to request modification to clear up language on the septic decision for monitoring volume of the septic flow into the facility. And with that, so that's the first item, and I'll get back to that in a second. The second is under decision 18, and in our conversations with the treasurer, the language calls for a surety or performance bond in a form acceptable to the town treasurer for $99,000 that shall be provided prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, which we're hoping to get from the building commissioner in the next week or so we can have some occupants move in there. We want to address how to fund that and what we have built into our purchase and sale agreements. So those are the 2 items. If I could go back to the first one, and as it relates to the septic flow, is in the original decision, it spoke about having individual septic meters so that they could be summed up and figure out how much affluent was flowing into the actual septic system. In our design and working with DEP and others, we found that it was somewhat impractical to hook up a septic meter on each one of the units, when in fact the net result is still resolved by having water meters that determine how much flow goes into the system, which then allows us to determine how much flow comes out of the system into the septic component, which again is restricted. So by categorizing the water that goes into the system, we're able to determine what actually goes into the septic system that has been designed. And, you know, I think this is something that your health agent, Ed Cohen, Karen, has recommended that, you know, we need to come in front of you because you need to modify the decision should the board so determine that it makes sense to do that, which we believe it does do, because the end result is still done. So that's one item. And I don't know if you want to talk about that right now or have any questions on that, and then we can have our team answer those, or if you want me to go into detail on the second item as well.
I think it'd probably be better just to go one at a time to clarify each one instead of go through three and back. So at the time with the meters, I remember a lot of discussion on this, and we were really trying to make sure each unit stayed at its design 220 gallons, even though the total of the system all added up. They were hoping to be under 7,700 gallons, I believe it says in here, on a rolling daily basis. Not to exceed 9,900 gallons.
Yeah, 9,900, yeah.
So that was the talk, just to see where the water was going. It wasn't asked at the time to really try to get away from that. That's why we left it the way it was. I understand putting 66 meters in is really impractical. I mean, you'd have to have a separate water line running from the utility room up to each basement.
Yeah.
To just to do this. I mean, and in a large complex like that, it doesn't really make sense. I understand that. So, but there are two buildings. Were you planning on putting 1 meter in each building? So you'd have 33 units on 1 meter? Or does the well go into one building and then through the building to the other building? How is it plumbed?
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman, we would have 2 meters, one on each building. And I think one other technical thing that I'll throw out there too is when you're tracking such low flowage, the accuracy of doing anything small is not there. So, you know, not only is it 33 meters, it's also the impracticality of the technology to be accurate and calibrated and so forth. And to what end? Because at the end of the day, if you know how much water is coming in, you know that that's the amount that's going to be coming out, and it's more accurate from that standpoint. So we're trying to be practical in this as well.
Okay, yes, and I totally agree with you on that. I mean, the 66 meters is not practical. So you're going to have irrigation. Are you going to make sure the irrigation is tapped off prior to each meter in this building, or is that a total separate well or a separate feed?
Separate well. The irrigation is a separate well that just feeds irrigation. It's not tied to the potable water supply. So again, the meter that's running into the building will be for domestic water going through and out the septic system.
Okay. I think that was all my questions on this one. I'll turn it over to Chris just to see where he feels on it and see what he remembers from us discussing this. Chris, you're on mute. There you
Yeah,
go.
so my thoughts were too is I couldn't remember it, and I'm glad you brought up front. I want to look at the minutes, but I do remember that the discussion was just to make sure we're tracking, and yeah, I don't see the need for overkill. if we are efficiently tracking the flow that's coming through and that could hit the system.
Okay, yeah, and then even just, they were supposed to give us the, I don't know if it was quarterly or annually of the 66 meters, and we were supposed to track it. I mean, it's pretty complicated to get that involved, so.
Right.
I don't think,
I think at the time too, when we discussed it, like, I didn't know, and and we didn't even get that involved. Like, I wasn't even sure if there was something geared towards this type of building, where there's a smaller type meter that does tracks differently. It's cheaper, so I didn't even, but because we didn't go that far down that road, I didn't even realize it was going to be that much of a cost too. So, I mean, as long as we're keeping track of this, what's going into the system, that's fine with me.
okay, so I think we're both in agreement on that, and I like the 1 meter per building, so you can kind of get a gauge. I mean, some people might, be snowbirds and head down to Florida for the winter and have vacant units. You don't even know who's going to be in there, so you really can't even gauge from that, but at least you'll know the flow to the system, like you said, is the most important part, and that those 2 meters will be reported to us instead of the 66.
Perfect. And again, you may have one person living in there versus two. In each one of the units, you mentioned the snowbirds. At the end of the day is we have a design system, and we're going to fall within that design system. And we're going to be able to back that up with the individual meter for each one of the buildings. So you're going to get the results you need.
Okay, now I just want to turn it over to our health agent, Ed Cullen, just on this one point, just to make sure he doesn't have anything to add for us to know.
No, I do not have anything to add.
All right, thank you, Ed. All right, back, we can go on to the next one.
Okay, and so the next one goes back again to section 18, which is the surety or performance bond acceptable to the treasurer. And again, this was put together in the second half of that section, talks about because the system is located in an environmentally sensitive area, and because it's a novel system requiring a high degree of oversight, the purpose of this performance bond is to ensure that adequate funding is available to perform maintenance, sampling, repairs if the permit holder fails to do so, and to restore any damage that may occur as a result thereof. So again, that's what the decision stated, and we have moved forward and are fully supportive of putting in the $99,000. It's the mechanics that are problematic, and let me explain why. Is that first of all, the system has been designed and it's been certified by DEP, and it meets all criteria the way that it's been done. So I think we're fine with the engineering piece, and now that that's been installed, your health agent has a good understanding of that, as well as DEP. What we did is we took that language in our purchase and sale agreement that we have for each one of the buyers, is that, in 20 years or whatever, 25 or 30 years, when the system needs to be upgraded or monitored, or some upgrades need to be done, is that we believe the intent of this was to set up a reserve fund so that those funds would be there and automatically get done. And so our language in our P&S states, and I'm just going to read this, and again, this is in every P&S. The first sentence, the start of the sentence goes, at the time of performance, the buyer shall pay to Lake Point Village Condominium Association amount equal to the common charge that would be due from the buyer for a 3-month period. This is their CAM charges they have. Said amount goes into a reserve fund and is not credited to their common charges otherwise to be paid by the buyer. So they're setting up a reserve of 3 months as far as their common area maintenance charge. But then it goes on to say, and this is what's important, also at closing, buyer shall pay $1,500, which is in parentheses 1/66 of the amount required by the Board of Health, end of parentheses, for a reserve fund for the septic system. So in essence, how we're funding that $99,000 is because this is something in the future that there's always upgrades that need to be done, is they're setting up that fund by each buyer's putting their $1,500 $1,500 times 66 people equals $99,000. And they're putting that into that reserve fund to be utilized in the future if it could be. And what we want to do is kind of set this up in an interest-bearing account so that as the money's in there, it grows with interest over the years. So that's what we have proposed and we built into all our purchase and sale agreements. Now, again, going back to the initial language, it says a performance bond or other suitable surety in a form acceptable to the town treasurer in the amount of $99,000 shall be issued prior to the shall be provided prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. So the decision kind of defers to the town treasurer as to how they want to set this up, but they're giving her ranges. And I think she and John Cotter can speak to this, but I believe she's looking for clarification as to how you guys want it set up. And we're trying to design this to meet the objective of setting up the $99,000, allowing it to accrue interest, and meeting that, but we're doing it through each sale into it, so it'll be built up as the property's fully occupied. So I'll leave it at that, unless actually I'm going to turn it over to just John Cotter, because he spoke to the treasurer collector directly, and see if he has anything else to add. And then, Mr. Chairman, if you and Chris have any comments, more than happy to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I did talk to the treasurer, and I sent her over this decision as well as the language that Michael read off from the purchase and sale agreement, showing that in this situation, there will be call it a restricted reserve account, where the only people that can take money out of it will be the town of Lakeville and the HOA. It's not something that anyone else can move money. Both people have to agree and sign. So this would be a completely funded cash account, and as Michael said, interest bearing in it, so that should something need to be done 20, 25 years from now, we don't have to worry about any bond renewals or anything like that, that the fund is just sitting there waiting to be used should it be needed. She did, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she did say something like she wanted to find out what this board did before making a final decision.
And the one thing I'll add to it, it does say performance bond or other surety, suitable surety. The challenge with a performance bond, and we've ran this language by our bondholders, and it doesn't have any definitive date. It's open-ended. And again, John can explain this in better terms than I can, but a performance bond needs to have an opening and a closure date so that they can, I guess, amortize how they're going to charge for that. Whereas, what we're trying to do is say, let's skip all that. Let's just make sure there's cash as the property sold. So the $99,000 is in there and it accrues interest over the time frame.
Okay, thank you for that. Chris, I don't know how good your memory is on this subject. The meeting minutes don't really spell it out very well. I don't know if you had time to read them. Ed had sent them over today. But
I think our main goal was mainly, depending on how long, was to cover, especially that dollar amount. I think was specifically to the series of tanks and the treatment facility itself before the field, was in case, we didn't know how long it was going to take for construction, how long it was going to take for every unit to sell. And we wanted to have some surety that could be replaced, and it wasn't going to sit and just, if it failed, it wasn't just going to sit and leak for God knows how long in an area that we were all well aware of how, the concern in that area, and it could be replaced immediately. And that was the whole reason for having that lump sum upfront. And this is before association was even talked about and discussed. This is, it was early on in the project. I think that's the gist, of where we were going with that number and why it was up front.
so if something failed right off the bat, the money was already there for the first half a dozen people in this complex. Okay.
Right. Say something catastrophic, the first building is going and, there's people moving in and something dramatic happens, it could be replaced like that before the other building's even built, and that's the one thing is the money going to be there? The money won't be there if something happened before it's full.
So yes, I'd love to address that. And again, going back to when this was permitted, I think it was probably a little unclear as to how the construction schedule would operate. Now obviously we're building one building at a time, but we built all of the infrastructure necessary for both buildings up front. So the system is designed for 66 units and it's installed and it's functional as it is right now. So that piece has been done, and I think that probably provides a little bit of clarity to when the board permitted the project but didn't have the details of how the construction is going to be. I know that that's been inspected and reviewed and certified by the engineers. It's a system that meets all and exceeds all DEP requirements. So I think from that standpoint, it's met that. And again, hopefully I've just answered your questions you just asked, Chris.
So I know the first building is almost done.
So the first building, where we are with the building is the entire building and envelope is closed in.
Yeah.
The first floor, the units are nearing 100%. They're like 99%. We're hoping to have the first couple tenants, they're under their P&S, they're looking to move in the end of this month. And that's why this is important, because it says in your building commission, is like, I can't give you the occupancy permit until we solve this issue. The second and third floor are in different states of completion. Predominantly what they need is kitchen cabinets going into each one of those. And those are going to be installed over the next, 30 to 60 days for each one of those to bring those live. But the building, as far as health and safety standpoints, as far as fire certification, as far as water, that will all be in the common areas will all be approved. And then as the individual units have their cabinets and final fixtures installed, then those will come online one at a time. But the common areas, the hallways, the life safety of the whole building it is ready for certification.
How many are under agreement?
Right now we have about about a third, John?
Yeah, about a third under agreement right now.
And the other thing too is I think the chairman mentioned that before there was no discussion of a condo association. The condo association is going to be the entity that will be running the facility in the future. Once the building is fully sold out. So it's the membership that's there that's going to be obligated to do those continuous maintenance and inspections and upgrades to the facility. And we have third-party operators assigned to manage the water and manage the septic as this moves forward. So they're licensed engineering operation firms that'll be going to be running the facility. It's not just going to be the members, it's third parties certified to do this.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, Chris, I remember the previous owner, they wanted to do 1,000, I believe he was proposing. I think that was in the meeting minutes, and we agreed to go to 1,500 per unit. So I clearly remember that. But now you mentioned, I thought we had talked about it was going to be at every closing, but it wasn't worded that way in the meeting minutes. So I think what you remember, it must have been why we wanted it up front when we were discussing that. But obviously this is a new owner also. This isn't the same owner it was approved for. And he had intentions of building both of these all at the same time in 3 months, and these are all going to be up and done. So
I didn't think he was going to
COVID
sell
hit.
it either.
what
I
was
thought
that?
he was going to keep it too. I didn't think he was going to sell it off.
No, I think what happened is obviously we've all been hit by the supply chain issues with COVID. We were hoping to have this facility up and running in September. And, we've getting the labor, getting the supplies has been very problematic for this project. You know, again, it's 6 months behind schedule, but all projects are like this around the whole state. So it's nothing unusual. It's just been very problematic from our end, making sure that all the trades are there, and then they get sick, and then they're out for a week or two, and one trade builds off the next trade. So that's why we made the decision just to focus on completing the first building, get that up and running, and then move to the second one once we have that fully operational. But build all the infrastructure for both buildings, so it's only just building the foundation and going up for the second building. So the pad for the second building has been prepped for putting in the footings, and all the utilities have been stubbed out to that second piece.
Okay, thank you for that. Just trying to set something off here. I think I'd be okay with it, Chris. I mean, I think it's gonna do the same thing if we do change it to every closing, but again, I understand your point, Chris. It's a very good
Yeah.
one. If something, who's gonna pay if them pumps fail right off the bat, where they haven't been used in 6-8 years and something happens?
Actually,
So I believe those pumps have all been upgraded and replaced.
actually,
Yeah,
I was just gonna say,
everything's been
Ed and I
tested.
haven't
Pumps
talked about
work.
this in quite some time. Ed, how have all the inspections gone, and how's it looking out there?
Yeah, with all the inspections went okay, and we did run the pumps, we did run the generator, we ran the blower, everything was run. We did a pressure test on the a distal head pressure test on the actual thing, so everything looked good. Like the pumps were working fine and everything. So as to when they were replaced, I don't know there, but they are working properly.
Okay. Do we know if the pumps were just replaced or?
Can you answer that? I know we had some pumps, and I'm thinking, is it water or the sewer, or is it both?
I know for the water we did. I'm not sure how much we rebuilt of the pumps, but I can check on that.
But if I could, let's just hypothetically say, you know, knock on wood, in 5 years or in 5 months, a pump goes, you know, based upon having the third party that we have operating it, they're obligated to replace that immediately. It's not something, it's a life safety issue. It's a safety issue that it has to get replaced. And that's up to, at that point, you know, the ownership as well as the condo association until it's fully turned over to the condo association. And then they have adequate funds in place, 3 months holdover, as I mentioned before, to deal with their incidentals that they have everybody prepaid to. So they have cash flow to deal with any type of incidental should something happen. I don't anticipate anything happen, but again, your job is to make sure that you're comfortable that this thing can, you know, should anything happen, that it is addressed immediately. And we're giving you the assurances that the professionals are on board to make sure that happens.
Can I say something?
Yep, go ahead.
Just on the pumps, they do have, all commercial systems have 2 alternating pumps. So if one fails, the other one works while the other second one is replaced. All pumps fail. They will fail in the future. I think this money was set aside more for what Chris was saying about a broken tank and a leaking, something like that, something more catastrophic. So just, I don't know if we should be focusing so much just on pumps.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, as the developer, when does this get turned over to the association? I mean, you guys are still going to be in control of this and liable for everything that goes on until it's turned over to the association anyway. So how many units will it be closed on at that time, and money will be put in before it's even out of your hands into the association?
I'm going to let John answer that.
Well, yeah, on the forming the association component to it, we'll be heavily involved in this, obviously through the first phase of the building, into the second. So I'm not sure if it's 75% or 80% that we're going to be looking at the HOA then to basically form and take it over. So we're gonna be involved.
The ownership acts as the HOA until we reach that threshold, and I just don't have that full document in front of me. But John's correct, it's somewhere around 75, 80%. Then at that time, then the management rolls to the HOA.
So we're talking probably close to 50 units will be closed on at 1,500 each should,
Approximately.
before it'll be pushed on to the association in case something happens, you guys are out of the picture and they're on
Yes.
the,
Right.
okay. Any comments on this, Ed, from you on which way, any ideas or agreement, disagreement?
No, not so much. I mean, I do agree with Chris in the sense that, there needs to be something, whether it's 99,000 up front. I don't know about that, but if something does go and there's only 1,500, yeah, that's a problem. But like I said, I guess we need something more like 50,000 or something like that. And like I said, if you are going to sell 30 units, I forget what the number was there, but 30 units times 1,500, yeah, that's about $45,000. So yeah, you could do something with that. And like I said, they do have extra funds as well. So as long as we have a certain number of units sold like that are in agreement, I think it's okay. Like I said, I don't think we need the full 99,000 up front, but we do need a certain amount,
Okay, thank you for that. Do you think there'd be a way to do that? Seeing you're only doing one building, just try to get half up front and then do the other building at each closing to try to meet in the middle? I don't know if that's even how Chris even feels about that option, but.
Mr. Chairman, of course, we want to meet in the middle, whatever you determine on that. What I would suggest for your consideration is that, let me think here. So the ownership's still in charge and still responsible for all of the bills. So, again, hypothetically, if a tank has a breach in 3 weeks, the ownership is still there and still building and still responsible. So, we're kind of responsible for that. I guess what I'd just be asking is that we would allow the certificate of occupancies to move forward, but at some point before the ownership releases its responsibility, or more importantly, turns over the HOA, because I think that's your real question is when the ownership's not there and is no longer day-to-day responsible, that the HOA has the funding set aside to do that at that point, that we would make sure that the account was funded. Is that acceptable?
I'll probably defer back to you, Ed and Chris, on that one too. I think it was even also just to have a way, because to have the town even be able to go fix this in case you as a developer or something happened and you weren't fixing this leaking tank or something catastrophic that happened, the town was able to step in and have money to fix the problem immediately if you as the developer was not fixing the problem. I think that's the sticking point. Am I correct, Ed, on that?
Yes, you are correct. Like I said, I think so. It would kind of be a combination as long as we got some of the money up front. If, like I said, I wouldn't expect a $99,000 mistake within the first month. So, as long as the town had something to start with, I think that would be okay.
What about splitting it and doing half for once one unit's ready to go and then another half when the other unit's starting to sell? I mean, you have the language to recoup at each sale your money through that mechanism you described. So, I mean, it's not a 99, giant lump sum up front, but at least it's something that's up front, that can ease everyone's concerns.
Sure. And if you don't mind, if I could go back to Ed. Ed, should something happen, what do you think that number would be that the town would need? And then whatever that number is, that's what we'll work on funding.
Well, what Chris just said with half, I think that's reasonable.
Okay. Okay, and then I guess the question with that, when would you want that paid by? So that we can move forward with the certificate of occupancies and allow the building commissioner to issue those. So we're fine doing the half, and it's just a matter of just figuring out when you want that due by. Given that we're still in charge of the project right now.
Ed, do you have, that would probably be before occupancy, Ed, is that, I think
Yeah,
that's
so-
exactly where Chris is going with it also, right? I mean,
Yeah, that was the original agreement before the occupancy, so I wouldn't want to change anything like that.
okay. And just for clarification, I mean, you were obviously aware of this agreement prior to buying this property, right? And knew that that was one of the requirements?
Yes, and that's why we're fine with the $50,000.
Okay. It would be what, 49.5? Is that half? Would that be one building?
Why don't we just make it 50,000
just
for
make it 50.
the bean counters to keep it straight for each building, and then the second building will be 49,000.
Well, how do you want to do the second building? Do you want to try to do the 1,500 at every closing on the other building, or you want it before occupancy of that building? Is that what we're agreeing on?
I'd like to do it at closing for the second building. We put $50,000 cash up front today or tomorrow. And then, for the second building, because that would be enough, as Ed said, that he'd need if there's a catastrophic thing. And then when the next building goes, those are paid per unit. It just goes in to supplement that fund. That would be better.
Chris, any thoughts on that?
I think I'm okay.
Okay. The only thing you're gonna be doing is by not doing that exactly half amount, you're gonna be messing up that $1,500 amount for every unit if you don't do the
Right,
exact.
all right.
I'm just trying to keep it simple for every close and where it's not 14 something, something, something.
Right.
Okay.
But I think
All
where
right.
they're talking about, where you guys are talking about having an account anyway, where all this money's gonna be going into, like an escrow account almost.
Yes.
Mhm.
You can make that lump number, whatever you want for each unit as you sell, right? Because that's gonna go into account for all fixes. So the specific number probably doesn't matter, right? As far,
And
because,
we could true it up towards the end of the second building, so yeah.
yeah,
I thought I was making things simpler, but the chairman was correct. Let's do the 49.5, the payment up front. And then, because I already got the P&Ss all straightened out, so let's keep the $1,500 for the second building. So I guess what I then asked is for number 18 to read something to the extent that the applicant will put up $49,500 in a reserve fund, naming the town as a John, what's the term we want?
A co-signer?
Yes, a co-signer. And do we want the town or do we want the Board of Health or the health agent? It probably should be the health agent. Should something ever happen, and again, we're dealing with worst case scenario, he wants to have access to funds immediately to do something.
I mean, whatever the town requires.
Yeah. And
I'll
this is
try-
where I think the treasurer just wants definitive direction as to how the board wants it set up. I think we've got the details of the numbers for building 1, building 2, and the $1,500 for building number 2. Now it's just, what are we calling it and who has co-signer authority of this?
Ed, any thoughts on that?
It should be to the town because that's where the town's ultimately going to pay the bill. So, I mean, it should be to the town. Whether myself is given the advice of what to do, that's fine as well. But the town is the one paying the bill, so I think it should read the town of Lakeville.
yeah, I think
Okay.
the original decision said that the board, I think the Board of Health and the town together that is the town, right? I think is what the original decision had read.
Right, and the Board of Health really doesn't have an account like that. It goes to the treasury of the town who's going to handle it. So it should be the town of Lakeville.
Okay, so just for clarification, we're going to cut a check to the town of Lakeville to set up this reserve fund account in the amount of $49,000, $500. That sum will be paid before the building commissioner can issue any occupancy permits. And then for building number 2 is every time there's a sale of every one of those units, an additional $1,500 will be deposited into that account.
Yes, I'm fine with that. Chris,
Yeah,
you agree with that? We'll have to make motions and vote on this. I don't know if you're jotting any of this down, Chris, also. When we do make a motion, but okay, so I'm good with that. I agree. I think that's a compromise, and hopefully it will help everything out. Hopefully nothing happens and we will never need to touch this.
That's our anticipation.
Okay, and then the last thing,
That was it. I'm sorry, just 2 items and we just addressed both of them. So I think it's for you guys to vote those and modify the decision.
okay, and what about the name change? I had one more note on my notes. Do we have to vote on a name change? I know it does go with the any new buyers that's in here. But do we need to do anything, seeing it's a new LLC?
Oh, John Connor.
Yeah, I believe you're referring to changing the name from 1 Fitzgerald Drive, LLC to the Lake, I think it's, let me get
Lakeville
the-
Island LLC.
Yeah, Lakeville Island LLC. If we could do that as well, that'd be helpful.
Okay,
And Mr. Chairman, I did want to jump in when you were mentioning it before, but it still is the same ownership group. It's just that the name change for the condo association, because the condo association will end up taking this over. So there will be a new owner of the condo association at some point, but it's still under the same ownership structure. John Deli Priscoli's just been having some health issues, so we asked John and I to take care of this tonight.
okay. And I know this was all drawn up by our town council, was involved in all this. I don't believe we've talked to him yet, Ed, on how to actually redo this. Do we have to have him draw up an amendment to be recorded? Any idea on that, Ed, or can we look into it tomorrow?
Yes, I can. I think it's just, as you said, just make the changes and run them by him and he'll get it recorded.
Okay. All right, and then I noticed there was one other thing in here, when I was reading through these. There was supposed to be a $4,000 yearly inspection set up, so we could have an outside entity oversee this for the first year. Did you see that in there? Has that been paid to the Board of Health? And then it was $2,000 for each additional year until the Board of Health determines there is no longer a need for this. Has that been set up? I just dropped the page. It's number,
14F.
yes. 14F.
John, can you answer
No.
that?
No, we can set that up as well.
Okay. And Ed, you can take care of setting that up. I don't know if we need to have an account again to have that money put in, or how that works. We didn't get that involved in.
I'm sorry, let me clarify that. We do have an outside vendor that will be monitoring the systems. I think that's what that reads. An outside consultant shall monitor and inspect the applicants at the applicant's expense of $4,000 for the first year and $2,000 each additional year. I believe that's included in our contract that we have with the outside consultant that will be managing it. I think that's what we interpret it as. Is that something
Yeah,
that's supposed to?
I don't think the Board of Health was ever supposed to get that money. It's just we
Yeah.
get the reports from the outside consultant, because there's no timeline on that either. It doesn't have to be done before the certificate of compliance. I mean, certificate of occupancy.
But we do have a professional water operator in place.
And
Wastewater.
John, why don't we just make sure Ed has a copy of that contract, just so he knows what they're obligated to do as the third-party professionals?
Sure.
I do have the contract in front of, oh, you mean for the third party or?
Party, yes.
Okay. Yeah, if you can send that to me.
Is that what you remember, Chris? I don't, I'm trying to recall, but I don't think that's what we were discussing in it, but I could be wrong. I thought we wanted to have somebody
I think
not
it was
from
as
the
long
Board
as
of
it's like
Health.
a third party, right? And I don't think it
The
had to
Board of
be
Health was
necessarily
gonna
yes.
hire. that the Board of Health was gonna hire to oversee this, because it was just such a complex project in a Zone A. I thought that's, like a Nick Laney, like we were gonna sub it out, and I thought that's what that money was for, but I could be wrong. It's very,
I can't be clear without reading all the documentation again.
yeah, and I read through the meeting minutes, it didn't really. Ed, I know you were only involved in the last meeting or two, so you think that was taken care of, the way they're explaining it to us, Ed?
Well, I guess when you say outside consultant, that's not the operator, right? You have a definite third party there, right?
I thought that was
Yeah.
a fee paid to the Board of Health, so we could hire our own outside consultant to monitor their reports that they were submitting to us, to
Well,
make sure it was doing what they were telling us.
Well, I think that's what they're saying. It's an outside consultant, whether they choose them or we choose them. I don't think that was ever determined. If you want to be the one that choose them, we can look back to see if that's the case. But it's definitely, they definitely do need what you're saying, a third party, not the operator, because the operator also sends reports to us. But there is also a third party that does this. Whether we ever distinguished who chooses it, whether the Board of Health chooses it or they choose it, I'm not sure on that, but you're correct, and we need a third party to oversee the first year, or then some.
Okay, so that makes sense to me, Ed. So as long as we have that, Chris, or Ed, I don't know if we really need to choose it, unless you feel we do, Ed. You'd be the one that would probably be choosing it. What do you think? Or just let them go with who they've picked? And
I think we would have to approve it. If they have someone, I would like to know who it was, and they said they would send me the contract. If I looked at the contract, and I could investigate the company themselves, and then go from there.
okay, and that should be done before occupancy also, I believe, or is that after? Is that gonna hold anything up?
The contract, the contract should be done before occupancy, but I mean, obviously the inspections themselves will be done while it's in use, so you have to have some people in there to do that.
Okay. Is that acceptable? You said you already had somebody anyway, correct, under agreement? So you just send that over to us?
We'll coordinate with Ed and make sure that, when it's operating, he gets the reports and can review the contract, and, we'll make sure this is to his satisfaction, since he'll be doing the day-to-day activity or whatever the schedule is.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anything else on that before we make motions and vote? Okay, is there anyone on Facebook that would comment on 57 Long Point Road? Changes to the notice of decision dated March 18th, 2020?
No comments on Facebook.
Okay. Chris, you feel up to making the three changes?
I think I could give it a shot.
Okay,
I'll make a motion that we approve the changes to the order of decision. That we will not require a water meter on each individual unit, but there will be units on measuring the flow, the overall flow into the system. And then we're amending the bond surety for the system from the 99,000 to 49,500 up front for the first unit. And then as the second unit is sold, they can bring in their 1,500 per unit from there. And also the name change. I don't know if we have to vote on the name change, but the name change is fine with us too. And all these things, I would just condition them all to town council review.
okay. And on the meters, there'll be one individual meter per 33 unit building.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And these are the amendments to the March 18th, 2020 notice of decision, variance and change in use for 57 Long Point Road. I second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Derek Maxim, aye.
Chris
I'll
Pratt, aye.
abstain.
And, all right, thank you for that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, just one quick thing. Thank you both for that and the whole board and to recognizing that town council, needs to redraft this and that may take some period of time. Could I ask you guys to authorize your health agent to contact the building commissioner and let him know of these votes so he can move forward with issuing the building occupancy while the process is going on for the drafting?
Yes, I'm fine with that. Chris, you good? You okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
All right. Yeah, Ed, if you could just email over and just let them know that we voted tonight on changing these things. We just have to get it drawn up and recorded, but it is voted on.
We'll work on getting that check over to you tomorrow or Friday. Oh, you're not open Friday, so tomorrow.
We're open Friday till noon.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get it over to you tomorrow or Friday before noon.
Thank you for that. Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
all.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, 8 Old Powderhouse Road, meet with Colin Civil Engineering Group to discuss local upgrade approval and variance requests. I'll turn it over to Colin's Engineering.
Good evening, George Collins, registered professional engineer from Collins Civil Engineering Group, representing Daniel Turcotte at 8 Powderhouse Road. If you'd like, if you want, I could share a screen.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Here. Let's see here. So this property has wetlands along the east side of the property. So you get Old Powderhouse Road here. Here's the house. This is the proposed septic system. This is a bordering vegetated wetland, and those wetlands do border surface water supply. And as a result of that, it's triggering us to request a local upgrade approval for the reduction for the setback between the wetland and the leaching field, the pump chamber and septic tank. We have filed with conservation, and that meeting is next Tuesday. We're also requesting a local upgrade approval for the use of a sieve analysis. So actually, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So basically, we're 101 feet off of the on-site well, 106 feet to the well to the southwest, 121 feet to the well to the northeast. And then I think there's the property to the southwest. I got a dimension to, I believe, 3 Old Powderhouse. It's 181 feet to that well. So we're kind of pinned into this corner, trying to maximize the distance between the wetland and then also achieving the 100-foot minimum setback to the on and off site wells. Be more than happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Okay, thank you for that. One question on your notes. It just says contractor must tie in laundry. Is that just note number 21? Is that just a general note you have? or
Yes,
is-
that's a general note. In fact, I know for a fact that everything is tied in to the main line coming out of the house.
Okay, so there'll be no,
That's a standard note I put on all my plans.
okay, I just wanted to clarify that because it didn't show laundry anywhere coming out anywhere different.
Yes, yeah, no, there's
Okay. And I guess my only other concern or just was when it does time of installation, you're pretty much locked right into our variances. I mean, you're just 10 feet off that property line. And the variance is just 50 feet. To that, you're asking 100 to 50 on variance number 2. So I'll just probably maybe recommending that it might have to be staked at time of construction because there's no room for error.
Yes, yep, and we've already staked it for conservation, and I'll be in communication with the contractor. Make
Okay,
sure that if they need us to we can restake it, in the field. Like I said, because we have zero wiggle room out there.
right, that's my only concern. I mean, it's fine
Yeah.
the way it is. I just want to make sure the contractor knows, and Ed, maybe you're just aware of it also at time of open hole that, that there's no wiggle room without coming back for an after the fact variance, because
Yes.
it's off a foot.
Well, if you want to, you can try to do it perfectly, or you can just give him a waiver to the property line, because he has it exactly 10 feet from the front property line. So, if you give him 9 or something, to move it that way a little, because like I said, I would rather push it a little closer to the street, because like you said, you gotta, it's so tight,
Okay, would that be an option for you?
I mean,
Just-
my professional opinion, the property line is finite, and the wetland line, as we all know, those are subjective. I mean, if you want, yeah, why don't we do that just to give us that as an option? And then what I will do is we'll make sure that everything gets restaked in the field, and we'll pull tape right off of the wetland flag. And just to make sure we have some solid assurances in place, but obviously that would be a great thing to do, because as we know, no matter what I do, sometimes there are still things that do happen in the field that would give us a little bit of wiggle room. So if that's something that can be done easily this evening, if we were going to be a little bit closer, that I'm fine with that.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you, Ed. I think that would be a great idea, and we wouldn't need to notify a butter or anything, because we are just moving it close to Old Powderhouse Road. So we could give you a variance, a 5th variance to the property line of Old Powderhouse Road from 10 to 5. And that would give you 5 feet of wiggle room to, just so it's,
That's excellent.
to flex it.
It's excellent foresight on Ed's.
yeah, there is a well there that's 106 feet away. So just, we can't move it too much, but we can move it like a couple feet.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree. A couple of feet. Either way, this is so tight, it's gonna have to get staked in the hole anyway. So we might as well just, give them the extra foot for some reason if they lay it wrong, but they're gonna have to shoot it in the hole anyway where it's this tight.
Yeah, if we had 2 extra feet, from 10 to 8, and then we staked it in the field an additional time after they have after they stop bringing in the sand, I think we can make sure that this is right where it needs to be. And then we'll still have that 1 foot of wiggle room.
Okay,
I'm good with that.
thank you. Yeah, I don't have, that was my only questions. It looks like you have a 10-foot remove and replace, so it's quite a bit of work on this one.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else we can put it. So, Bob, I'll turn it over to you. Any other comments,
No,
questions?
just like you said, there's literally no other place to put it. So this is the best case scenario for that lot. I'm fine with it. And yeah, I don't mind giving them extra foot or so, but like Ed said, we don't want to start getting too close to a well either. If there was a ton of room that we could change it 5 feet, then that would be one thing, but it's so tight, it has to get staked in the hole. So they're just gonna have to be very mindful of that and hit it right on.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Chris, comments, questions?
No, I don't have anything extra to add. Yeah, it's all been said.
Okay, and then what do we agree? We're gonna go 2 feet to give a 2-foot variance to Old Powderhouse, variance number 5, is that to 8 feet instead of 10 feet? Is that what we're agreeing on?
I'm good with that.
Sounds fine.
Okay. Ed, any comments?
I have no comments.
Okay, and I believe we had no abutters notified on this, am I correct?
No. And
Well-
I do think you have, a neighbor on the phone.
Well, you did notify Taunton and New
Yes.
Bedford, so.
Yes, the
we-
water departments. Yep. the
Right,
top.
there is a neighbor on the phone, and if he'd like to comment, he can, but he's here also for this meeting. Not for your case, but he has his own issue, but like I
Yes,
said, if he'd like to comment now, he can.
Yep, I did receive something in the mail about Old Powderhouse Road from Mr. Turcott.
and that was
And I have
probably, I'm sorry, that's probably a conservation notification for the meeting.
Yes,
next
it
week.
was.
Okay.
Okay, you said you have no comment on it?
I have no problem.
Okay, thank you for that.
And kind of in anticipation of the butter that was just talking, I did take a look on my computer and I just double checked that we have 181 feet to his well. He's to the southwest, across the street to the southwest. But just, I saw that he was on the, I noticed that he was on the,
On the call.
on the phone. So in anticipation of that, just as a precautionary measure, I just measured that well, just for additional information.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone on Facebook that would like to comment or question on the septic repair at 8 Old Powderhouse Road? I hear no one.
I don't see any comments.
All right, thank you for that. So we should be good to make a motion on this one? Bob, you feeling up for it?
I am having a very hard time reading it because what I printed is so small. So can anybody else read it better than I can? There's 4 plus the one we just added.
I have nothing in front of me. Sorry.
Derek,
Okay,
Derek, you say it and I'll move it. How's that?
all right, so I still make a motion to say it, correct? Make a motion to,
Yeah,
To
you
approve?
you can say I'll entertain a motion to, and then say it all. And then when you finish, I'll say so moved and then Chris can second it.
okay, I entertain a motion to approve the septic repair at 8 Old Powderhouse Road with 5 local upgrade approvals. 4 that has been listed, allowing the sieve instead of a perk, a variance from 100 feet to 50 feet to the wetlands bordering a surface water supply, a variance from the septic tank from 100 bordering the wetland to 63, and the pump tank, actually, did I do it wrong? Hold on.
No, you're correct.
Yeah, septic tank, and then the pump tank is the 4th variance requires minimum 100 setback to a bordering surface water supply to 75. And we're gonna add a 5th variance on this to allow an 8-foot setback to the property line at Old Powderhouse Road. Would be the 5th.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye,
Aye.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
George.
evening.
Okay, next on the agenda, 3 Old Powderhouse Road. Meet with Douglas Murphy to discuss request for a waiver for the Lakeville Board of Health regulations. I believe he's on the line. Okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. Murphy for comment.
Yes. One comment is to the gentleman who has COVID. My heart goes out to him because I've got the same damn thing too, and it sucks.
Thank you. I hope you get over it too soon.
Yeah, I need this like I need a hole in the head.
Right.
I put in for a variance on the septic tank system for 3 Old Powderhouse Road. It was done by Murphy Brothers Excavating, and the report that they gave me on the tank and the pump tank, that it was in excellent condition. And when the guy was here, he said, no, that probably does not need to be changed. I also talked with Bay State, who has been maintaining the system. They said the tanks are in excellent condition, and the pump, the storage ejector pump that's in the dosing tank was put in new with new wiring and controls in 2018. When I got the Zenith report for the system, I was surprised that that was not passed on to them because they wanted an entire Presby system put in, as well as tank, pump chamber, and everything. I did get try to go get a bunch of estimates from a bunch of companies, and not one company has gotten back to me, but they all saw the print, and they all said the same thing, that it would be very crazy and against cost to change the septic tank out and the pump chamber out, which in my trade as a plumber inspector, a plumber, and working in the sewer plant for 30 years, that easy to change those tanks out. They do work, they're in excellent condition, but I do know that the leaching field, if anything, would be a problem. I have no problem changing the leaching field. More than likely, it's probably loaded up with tree roots. But I have not stuck a camera down there to verify that. My variance is I'd like to at least keep the two tanks, the pumping chamber, the septic tank, and change the entire leaching field so it conforms with 310 CMR.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll discuss it. So I've been, there's actually one other reg that you wouldn't be complying with either, is the 2-compartment reg. That's in our local regs. We require 2-compartment septic tanks.
Yes, I know.
So that would be another one. Again, it's these regs have both been on prior to me being on the board, and I've been on, I believe, almost 9 years now. So these regs have been on our books for a long time, and I can't say of one where we've not enforced them.
I've read the regs.
Okay.
And I also know about, now is this Mr. Cullen?
No, this is
Speaking?
Derek Maxim, the chairman.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
also, I have the.
I have
as-built
read.
plan.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, I have the as-built. I mean, these must be almost the original tanks. It says June 21st of 1980. I mean, these tanks are coming up on 42 years old this June. So
Yes, I know.
This new system could last another 30 or 40 years. So you're talking tanks that are going to be 70, 80 years old. We have that 20-year reg. So, I mean, from my experience, there's no way you can tell the structural integrity of a tank that's buried in the ground, that's been in the ground for 42 years by looking in the cover. I mean, concrete breaks down from inside, and that this was put on for, to have new tanks installed after 20 years. And it's a safety issue too. I mean, if that tank collapses while somebody's driving a lawnmower over it, they could die from it.
Well, that's kind of absurd because I know where this tank is. I know it's concrete. JR Precast made them. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's going to break and fade. I've had a Kubota, which is a good size one, which I mow the lawn and everything. I have never fallen into the septic tank. That's not going to happen. And I know about the 20-year, that if it's 20 years old, you'd have to change it. The new tanks, the baffle was really put in septic tanks to strengthen the septic tanks so the sidewalls wouldn't collapse when the contractor was backfilling them. A lot of contractors had the ability, were using their backhoe to drive into the dirt and compact it with the front wheels around the tank, and then they would bust through the tank with the weight of the machine. In the plumbing code, you must do it in 6-inch lifts with a plate compactor all around the tank, not with a machine. That's why the original baffles were put in. The baffle doesn't help the tank at all in any way and shape with the suspended solids going into the leaching fields. When the fields usually fails, it's either because of roots, rocks, or it's done wrong, or it was not designed right. This isn't the case here. The tanks are fine. Bay State has already inspected them, said they're in excellent condition. I would be the first one to know if the tank ever cracked or leaked and went into the basement. All the wiring's new and everything's new. It's ridiculous to change something that works perfect. Just because it's 20 years old doesn't mean it's going to fail.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the other members and get their opinions. I still pretty much disagree with everything you just said, so I'm not in agreement with any of it. I feel the tanks need to be replaced. They should be replaced. That's
Well-
why there is one. We're gonna continue talking. Let us all go through it, and then I'll come back to you after the board members discuss, just to move this along. Bob, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Yeah, ever since I've been on here, we've been following that. It's not like it's 18 or 21 years old. I mean, it's 42 years old. Like you said, you tack on, the next field lasts for 20 or 30 years and you got a 70-year-old tank. And I don't know how these people are saying that the tank's good without digging around it and doing soil tests around it and under it to find out if it's leaking. I don't know how they're telling this gentleman that they're good. I mean, I don't know any other way to test a tank without doing that. So I'm with you. And if I just want to point out that if cost is the issue, we have money available to lend out to do these type of repairs and stuff. And that there is a $6,000 a year, a $6,000 total tax credit when you do your taxes to go towards helping people right off of their taxes with a septic system when they replace it and bring the entire system up to code. So, but yeah, this one isn't even close. I mean, like you just said, 42 years, you tack on 20 or 30 years, you got a 60 or 70-year-old tank. And I don't know any concrete tank that's ever lasted 60 or 70 years.
Okay, Chris, questions, comments, thoughts? What are you thinking there?
Yeah, I have a question. So is the house being sold?
Yes, it is.
So that's another reason too, yeah, I mean, yes, we want to hear your concerns, but also we have to be concerned about the homeowner that's going to take on this problem down the road too. And we don't want them to encounter something that could go wrong, because the tank is that old. And just because it's held up for your lawnmower all these years doesn't mean it's not going to hold up for someone else's down the road, 5 years from now, and it just poof goes, it's a bit of I don't know about liability, but it's a safety thing.
Ed, just have you jump in your thoughts on these two regs that we have on the books and why they're there.
Yeah, they're there for a reason, especially like you kind of mentioned it with the tanks. I mean, when a field fails, yeah, you get back up in the D box and then it's a gradual failure. When a tank fails, it's pretty immediate and like I said, it's more catastrophic, whereas the collapse, and usually when they collapse, it's the top because it's the hydrogen sulfide within the tank itself. It eats away at the underneath. So when you look at the top of the tank, it's the underneath part of it. So as you mentioned, when you're looking down in the tank, you can't see the roof of the septic tank, and that's what usually gets eaten away. You know, we don't know if the rebar is exposed, you know, so that can be, like I said, because a lot of times, like I said, it's just small cracks, and then the gases get in there, and then the rebars and the steel in the tank starts to rust. And like I said, it doesn't have to be completely exposed. You just need small cracks within the roof of the tank for those for that steel to start to rust. And then, like I said, when a heavy object goes over it, it just collapses. So it's a lot more dangerous than a field failing or a D-box failing or something like that. So I think that's why they have the rule. And overall, I think it's a good rule.
Okay, a couple questions for you, Ed. We did get that new plan for this property submitted. Do we have that? Was that already approved?
Yes, there were no waivers on that one, so I went and approved it back in
Okay.
back in December.
All right, I don't have a copy of that. I wasn't able to swing by to grab that. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
All right, now I know obviously it's a pump system, there's gotta be models. Where was the models to the invert of that tank? I mean, and did they request an H20 monolithic tanks because of the water table? They requesting
Yes.
tar coated H20, you know what I mean? That's another factor for replacing these tanks.
Yeah,
In the water table.
You're correct on both of those. They're both monolithic. They're both H20. You know, and part of it's the buoyancy calcs as well. I think that's one of the reasons why they went with the H20. We do have water at 48 inches. That was higher up. We didn't do any test pits near the location of the tanks. Basically the mottling was right near the initial grade, because where we did the test hole, a lot of that was fill. So basically the model was just below the fill. So there's definitely a lot of water coming down that hill. And there's a number of stone drains in the area. I don't know what's around the tanks, if there's anything there to divert the water. But I would expect some water when you're excavating the tanks. And the plan also has a dewatering basin for when they're going to install the tanks. They do have a dewatering basin right there, and they do expect to be a lot of water in the area there. It's tough to say the exact groundwater there, because like I said, we didn't actually do it, and it's a considerable difference in elevation compared to where the field is.
Okay, and I read the Title V report, which I do have in front of me, and that does say it has a sump pump in the basement. So obviously there must be water close to some point in the basement. So again, as the engineers that have drawn and submitted a plan, they're already asking for H20 tanks. That these aren't, we don't know. My plan doesn't show back from 1980 what the tanks are. I don't even know if they had monolithic tanks back then. But that would be just another reason why, at least in my opinion, why these absolutely should be changed. And again, to give waivers for on something like this, we might as well take the rag off our books if you're just going to grant waivers, because everybody's going to want them. I mean, I understand the cost, and people don't want to spend the money to put in a tank when they have a tank. But to grant a waiver for these two tanks, I just can't agree with. Any other comments before I open it back up? Chris?
I'm good.
Bob, any?
No, I agree with you. This is just too old.
Okay. Is there anyone out on Facebook that would comment on 3 Old Powderhouse Road?
Nobody on Facebook.
Okay, and now I can turn it back over to the homeowner, Mr. Murphy, for any other comment. I don't even know if we need to make a motion on this, because, or do we? Does anybody have an idea on that one? I mean, there's already a plan submitted and approved on this.
Yes, which I never saw originally. I only saw this plan just a couple of weeks ago before I came down with COVID. And also, who changed the house from a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom?
Ed, any idea on that one? I have 3-bedroom as-built in front of me.
The old plan has, for 495 gallons, I believe. Was it? Oh, no, hold on.
Nope, that's the square footage of the leaching field. Says right on the old, on the one that was designed by HOS Engineering Associates in Rainham is a 3-bedroom house. 495 square foot required for a leaching field versus 800 for Zenith.
Ed, you have that plan. You have all the paperwork in front of you. My plan does say 3-bedroom. I don't know why it would have been designed for a 4, especially with a sieve.
The assessors has it as a 4. I think that's why they did a 4.
Okay. But I mean, that should have been kicked out by us anyway, because it would have been new construction if you're going to 4, and they should have had more. Am I incorrect on that?
Yeah, I haven't calculated the exact gallons per day. I can do that in a sec.
440 gallons per day. It's 110 gallons per bedroom. So that would be 440 gallons per day for a 4-bedroom versus 330 gallons for a 3-bedroom. That also changes your leaching field size by about 400 square feet.
Okay, so Mr. Murphy, you're actually, you want to submit a 3-bedroom? Is that what you're getting at? You want to have it redrawn and actually install
No,
a
I think it's, no, because I think I mean, you guys have your mind made up on not changing the tanks. So I think at this point, it's a moot point whether it's 300 feet or 400 square feet. I would just go with what Zenith put in. My heartburn as a master plumber, a plumbing inspector, and a person who's been in the sewage field for over 40 years, that 2 tanks that are working perfect. And I've been in my 2 tanks physically. They're not cracked, they're not ruined. And I know they were tar coated when they were put in. Because I watched them be put in. I watched everything in this house be built because I used to live right next door at 3 Old Powderhouse Road, or it was actually 35 at the time. You know, but you know, like the old saying is, you can't fight City Hall. So I did request this because the only reason why I'm putting the house up for sale is because I lost my job with the military. So that's the only reason why I'm putting this house up for sale is because of that. And I figured I would ask you people for the variance. So that's why I called the meeting, but I know you guys don't want to change the tank. You want to change the tanks because of age, but in all the years that I've been a plumber, I haven't seen any tanks that have failed at all. It's up to you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you for that. Ed, can we just clarify on the bedroom count? We're going to go with what's been submitted, and Mr. Murphy would like to continue with that 4-bedroom that we have?
Like I said, the assessors has it as 4, and I did check that, and that's why I think I okayed it. I'm trying to do the calculations right now. It is a older system, so that's why it's not just a square foot. They also get to use the sidewall. So I believe it may actually be 4-bedroom, but the calculation they did is kind of odd, the way they did it. So that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. But like I said, I don't know if that was pertains to the meeting though, what he's asking for.
No, I just caught that.
Okay. Do we need a motion to deny this? Bob, should we make a motion to deny that, or is it just,
Probably because it was a formal request on one of our
Okay.
meetings, so we should probably do it just so we cover our bases.
do you have that piece of paper in front of you that we received as requests?
I don't have it, but all we're doing is we're gonna make a motion to deny 30 Powderhouse Road to leave the existing tanks in place, correct?
Correct.
'Cause that was all that was asked for, so I'll make that motion.
Second,
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 All right, sorry for that, Mr. Murphy. Again, it's just, I think the board feels very strongly on
Well,
these local regs we
but-
have, and that they're for a reason, for public safety.
I know
can-
that.
All right, thank you.
Just one thing, Bob Palucci had mentioned something about the rebate. If you'd like, I can send you that information about getting the $6,000 tax rebate from when you install the system.
Yes, I'd appreciate that. Yeah, so I would make a motion that you said you're gonna deny, and I would go with the Presbury system with Zenith, which is the approved plan. Food for thought in the future, when you guys want tanks to change, like this particular tank, we change it, put it out 20 years from now, what's gonna guarantee that that tank is not gonna fail for the owners in the future?
Correct. I think the same rule would apply in 20 years from now if the system fails. This,
Or if it does fail,
correct, it still applies. It would still apply to replace in 20 years.
and here's the other funny thing, if I didn't lose my job with the military and I didn't put this house up for sale, I would have stayed here till I croaked. And we probably wouldn't be having this conversation about the septic tanks because everything would be working fine. You know, it's only when you open up a can of worms that you open up a
Yeah, you
can of
find the
worms and you
worms.
find out all sorts of stuff.
Right. All right. Thank you for that. Thanks for coming in tonight. Sorry we couldn't.
Yeah, and I hope Daryl, if it's Daryl, I hope you're better with the COVID, sir.
Thank
That's
you.
Chris.
Same to you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Feel better, Mr. Murphy. All right.
Thank
next
you.
on the-
Take care.
Thanks. Next on the agenda, review and approve meeting minutes as typed. Board of Health meeting minutes, October 20th, 2021. All three members were present at the time. Chris, I'll go over to you first. You seem to
I'm
be
good with it.
very, okay. Bob,
I'm okay with them.
like to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the Board of Health minute meetings from October 1st.
Second,
That was October 20th, 2021. I have.
October 20th.
Okay.
I can't read any of the stuff I
Oh.
have in front of me. I'm sorry, you printed too small. Not
All right.
not being able to be there and have everything in full size is killing me tonight.
yeah,
Okay.
I didn't go pick up my packet, and then I didn't
That's a good
open the
thing,
other
Chris.
computer to open everything up because I'm
All right, we had a,
I'm enough to sit in this chair. That's what I'm enough to.
we're trying to get you out of the chair, Chris. All right, we had a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I
All right. That is it under the meeting minutes. Go down to old business, discuss recent Board of Health agent pending items. I have nothing. Bob, you have anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Chris, anything?
no, I'm good.
All right, I'll just turn it over to Ed then, if you have anything to bring to the board's attention. If not, we can go down to the COVID-19 update for the public.
The only thing is we probably should send out the tight tank inspections soon because they will have to be done in the spring. So we normally send out a reminder, and I just wanted to make sure it was okay with you guys to send that out soon.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yep.
Thanks for being
Yeah.
proactive.
Yes, I agree. I think it's the reminder helps people, and It helps us get them inspected like they're supposed to be. Anything else on that, Ed, or?
No, I think that's about it. Oh, yeah, no, the rest is just COVID stuff.
Okay. Can move on to the COVID update then.
So I guess the first good news about COVID in a while is the cases are starting to come down. Like I said, over the last 4 or 5 days, we are seeing a decrease, which is good news. But like the other thing is we're very high right now, so it's going to take a couple weeks to be back to what we were before Thanksgiving. So like I said, we're going in the right direction. People are taking precautions now. And also with the hospitals, the overall hospitalization hasn't really changed much, but they are starting to get a lot of their staff back because the last couple of weeks they were really short on hospital staff, both nurses and doctors. A lot of them were out sick as well. So they are getting their staff back. So that's a good sign as well. But like I said, we still got a little ways to go. So yeah, that's the update there. Just let everyone know that the Lakeville Fire Department is offering testing. It's available on the website. And the federal government is also offering 4 free tests. There's a mail-in, which you can get for free through the mail. You can go to the Lakeville Board of Health website, and then you'll get a link to that, and it'll show you how to register to get those 4 free tests. They're take-home tests, which can be done at home. What everyone's doing right now is they're pushing testing because there's so many people sick right now, and you really want to make sure you don't have COVID if you're going out. So that's the idea behind all the testing.
Yeah, I saw yesterday when Baker was talking, the wastewater numbers that shows the COVID in it have come down as fast as they went up. But he was afraid to say that was a sign of good things because everything keeps changing the last 2 years. So I don't think anybody really knows, but it seems positive.
Thank you for that update, Ed. Chris, any comments on the COVID updates? See,
Wish I got my booster. Would have cut this in half, I would hope. But yeah, I'm on day 8. So I might be going for a CT scan tomorrow. So
hopefully you get through it quickly, Chris.
yeah, I hope so too.
All right, I have no other comments or nothing else on the agenda. Somebody'd like to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ed.